It was a chilly Friday evening in early spring when Emma stood in front of her mirror, nervously adjusting the small gold pendant around her neck for what felt like the 10th time. She wasn't usually the type to fuss over appearances, but tonight was different. She was about to go on her first date with Ryan, the guy from the marketing department who had managed to charm her with his quiet confidence and warm humor. He wasn't like the others she dated, no flashy car, no designer suits, no pretentious talks about money or status. There was something simple, grounded, and real about him. Still, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered that maybe she should have said no when he'd suggested dinner at Marty's Diner, a small, old-fashioned place near the outskirts of town. A diner, for a first date, her best friend Clara had laughed when she'd heard. "Girl, if a guy takes you to a diner, he's either broke or testing you," Clara had teased, tossing her long hair over her shoulder. Emma had smiled but hadn't replied. Maybe it was a test. Maybe it was something else. She decided she'd find out soon enough. When Ryan arrived, he wasn't driving some sleek vehicle, just a faded blue truck that looked like it had seen better days. But he smiled when she came out of her building, and that smile, it made her nervous heart slow just a little. "You look beautiful," he said softly. "Ready?" The drive was calm, filled with easy laughter. He asked about her day, her dreams, her favorite books, not her salary, not where she wanted to vacation next, but things that mattered. Emma noticed the sincerity in his voice when he listened, not just waiting for his turn to talk. But when they pulled up to Marty's Diner, her heart sank for a moment. The neon sign flickered, half the lights dead, and the windows were foggy from the steam inside. It wasn't dirty, but it definitely wasn't fancy. Through the glass, she could see a few older couples, a family with 2 kids, and a waitress wearing a pink uniform with a coffee pot in her hand. Ryan noticed her hesitation immediately. "I know it's not fancy," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "But I promise, the food here is amazing. I used to come here with my mom. It's kind of special to me." Something about that honesty made her smile. "If it's special to you, I'm in," she said. Inside, the smell of coffee and freshly baked pie filled the air. The waitress greeted Ryan by name, which surprised Emma. "Ryan, haven't seen you in a while, honey. And you brought someone special." Ryan laughed, a little embarrassed. "Yeah, thought I'd share your world-famous pancakes with someone new." They were seated in a booth by the window. The menus were laminated and slightly worn from years of use. Emma ran her fingers over the surface and smiled at the simplicity of it all. It felt nostalgic. "So," she said, trying to lighten the moment, "is this your secret test? To see if I'll judge you for a diner date?" Ryan chuckled. "Maybe a little, but honestly, I just wanted to be somewhere that felt real. No noise, no pressure, just good food and honest conversation." Emma felt herself relaxing. They talked, really talked, for hours. About dreams, fears, their families, and even silly childhood stories. She learned that Ryan had lost his mom when he was 19, and that he'd worked 2 jobs through college. He didn't brag, didn't complain, he just spoke from the heart. When their food came, burgers, fries, and milkshakes, Emma couldn't stop smiling. "You weren't kidding," she said between bites. "This is amazing." "Told you," he said, grinning proudly. Marty's Diner never disappoints. As the night went on, Emma realized something she hadn't before. She'd spent so many years chasing perfect moments that she'd forgotten how good the real ones felt. The waitress, whose name tag read, Lydia, returned with a slice of pie, on the house. For the cute couple, she winked. Emma blushed, and Ryan just laughed. "Thanks, Lydia, you're the best." When the check came, Ryan reached for his wallet, but Emma stopped him. "Let's split it," she said. He shook his head gently. "Not tonight. I invited you. My treat." There was no arrogance in his tone, just kindness. She let him pay, and when they walked outside, the cold air hit their faces. The street was quiet except for the hum of distant traffic. Ryan looked at her, his eyes reflecting the neon diner sign. "Can I show you something?" he asked suddenly. "Sure," she said, curious. He led her behind the diner, to a small fenced area where a garden grew, tomatoes, herbs, even a few flowers. "I help out here sometimes," he said. "Lydia started this after her husband passed. She wanted to keep busy, and I figured I could lend a hand. They use the vegetables in the kitchen. It's not much, but..." Emma looked at him in awe. "That's actually really sweet." Ryan shrugged, suddenly shy. I just think small places like this matter. People here remember your name, care if you're okay. My mom used to say, you don't have to do big things to be good. Just small things with love. For a moment, the world felt still. The sound of the diner, the glow of the city beyond, the sincerity in his words, it all wrapped around her like a warm blanket. As they walked back to the truck, Emma felt something unexpected. It wasn't just attraction, it was trust. The kind that's rare and real. When he dropped her off, he didn't lean in too soon or try to force the moment. He just smiled softly. I had a really great time tonight, Emma. So did I, she said, genuinely. Thank you for everything. He smiled, a little unsure, like he didn't know he'd just changed her whole perspective. After he left, Emma stood at her door, her heart still racing, not from excitement, but from peace. The kind of peace that comes when you realize someone sees you not as a prize, but as a person. She didn't know it yet, but that simple night at a cheap diner would soon become the story everyone would be talking about, because what happened next would prove that true worth has nothing to do with price tags. The next morning, Emma woke up with a smile that refused to fade. The memories from the night before replayed in her mind like a quiet movie, the laughter, the pie, the sincerity in Ryan's eyes. There had been no grand gestures, no luxury or pretense, but something about that evening felt unforgettable. Her phone buzzed. It was Clara. So, her friend's voice was bright and teasing. How was your diner date with Mr. Truck Guy? Emma laughed. Honestly, it was perfect. Perfect, Clara repeated, half joking. At a cheap diner. Yes, Emma said simply. You wouldn't get it, Clara. It wasn't about where we went. It was about how I felt. Clara chuckled, unconvinced. Okay, Miss Sentimental, just don't tell me he's secretly a millionaire in disguise. Emma rolled her eyes, but she couldn't help smiling at the irony. Over the next few weeks, she and Ryan kept seeing each other. Sometimes they went to the park for picnics, other times they helped at the diner garden together. They'd grown close, not through fancy dinners, but through small moments that felt real and effortless. Then, one Thursday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Emma was called into a company-wide meeting at work. The marketing firm was preparing a massive partnership with a new client, the Archer Group, a well-known investment firm expanding into real estate and tech. The CEO himself was visiting that day to finalize the deal. Everyone was nervous, polishing presentations, adjusting ties and skirts. When the elevator doors opened and the guest stepped out, a murmur ran through the room. It was Ryan. Emma froze. He looked different. Sharp black suit, polished shoes, confidence radiating from him like quiet authority. Every executive in the room straightened. People whispered, "That's Ryan Archer," and, the founder himself. Founder. Emma's mind spun. He caught her eye for a brief moment, and a subtle, knowing smile appeared on his face, the same warm smile from that night at the diner. But this time, the room bowed to him. "Good afternoon, everyone," he said in his calm, deep voice. "I'm excited to officially partner with your firm." Emma felt her pulse quicken. Ryan Archer. She'd heard the name before. His company was worth millions, maybe more. He'd been in Forbes last year for launching a program that funded small businesses and helped struggling restaurants recover after the pandemic. But how, why, did he never tell her who he was? After the meeting, as people swarmed him to shake hands and flatter him, Emma slipped quietly out of the room, her mind racing. She wasn't angry, not exactly, but confused. Why had he hidden it? Why take her to a diner if he could have afforded any place in the city? As she reached the lobby, a familiar voice called her name. Emma. She turned. Ryan stood there, a soft, almost sheepish look in his eyes. "Can we talk?" She hesitated but nodded. They walked to a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the skyline gold. "I owe you an explanation," he said. "You think," she said, half laughing, half hurt. "Ryan Archer, the guy who took me to a diner in a pickup truck." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, that guy. Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "You let me think that I was just a regular guy," he finished. "Because that's what I wanted to be. With you, I didn't want to be Ryan Archer, the CEO. I just wanted to be Ryan. The guy who could eat pancakes and talk about dreams without people pretending to listen because of my last name." His voice was quiet, sincere. "Every date I've had before, it was always about money. The restaurant, the clothes, the car. No one ever cared about who I actually was. You were different. You didn't flinch when I drove up in that beat-up truck. You didn't laugh at the diner. You made me feel human again. Emma felt her anger melt into surprise, and something deeper. You took me to Marty's, she whispered, because you wanted to know if I was real. He nodded slowly. It's my test, he admitted. Not for others, for myself. To remind me where I came from. My mom used to work there when I was a kid. She taught me everything I know about kindness and hard work. That diner is where it all started, even my first business idea. For a moment, Emma didn't know what to say. She remembered the way he'd talked about his mother that night, the tenderness in his voice when he said, "Small things with love." Ryan looked at her carefully. If I hurt you by not telling you, I'm sorry. I just wanted one thing in my life to feel normal. And you gave me that. Silence hung between them, broken only by the faint hum of traffic below. Emma took a deep breath. You know, I should be furious right now, she said with a half smile. But honestly, I'm not. I think I understand. He looked relieved. You do, she nodded, because if you'd told me from the start, I might have acted differently too. Maybe I would have been nervous, or tried too hard, and then I wouldn't have known you. They both smiled, that same quiet, honest smile from the diner. Weeks later, their story spread through the company. People couldn't stop talking about it, how the CEO had gone undercover to find someone genuine, how the girl he took to a cheap diner turned out to be the only one who saw his heart before his fortune. But to Emma and Ryan, none of that mattered. They kept going back to Marty's, sitting in the same booth, sharing the same pie, laughing about how cheap that first date had seemed. On their one-year anniversary, Ryan reserved the entire diner for the evening. Lydia, the waitress, cried when she saw what he'd done. He'd renovated the place, new floors, brighter lights, and a sign that now read, Marty's, where every love story begins. He took Emma's hand across the table. This is where I found what really matters, he said softly. I don't ever want to lose it. That night, under the warm glow of the diner lights, he pulled out a small velvet box. Emma, he said, voice trembling slightly, you showed me what love without conditions feels like. Will you marry me? Tears filled her eyes. She didn't care about the diamond, or the crowd, or the cameras that later caught wind of the moment. All she saw was the same man who'd once offered her a burger and a milkshake, and his heart, honest and true. Yes, she whispered, 1,000 times, yes. And just like that, the diner that once seemed cheap became the most valuable place in their world, not because of what it served, but because of what it started. Love that didn't need money to prove its worth. Love that stayed simple, even in a world that wasn't. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary stories begin in the most ordinary places, over pancakes, laughter, and a cup of coffee that never runs out.